You know that another season of Chibs the Idiot's dumpster fire is on the horizon when inflammatory articles start appearing. Articles that try to get everyone stirred up while at the same time they hope that we don't dig a little bit deeper into what is actually being said. Doctor Who star responds to ignorant criticism of Rosa Parks episode. I think Ryan must have watched my video last year, or perhaps he just looked at the thumbnail like most people that criticized it. Toes and Cole explains why the episode's warning against racism is tragically resonant. Actually, this episode completely misrepresented the event itself, but let's see what he has to say. Doctor Who star Toes and Cole is hitting back at criticism of the show's highly acclaimed Rosa Parks episode. Highly acclaimed for all the wrong reasons, especially since this story had holes you could drive a truck through. Rosa Parks was and is a fundamentally important historical symbol when it comes to the fight for equal rights of African Americans in the US. What Chibs the Idiot and Mallory Blackman did was little more than turn it into race-baiting garbage. We all know that life was horrendous for African Americans in the South, but there was an important historical fact that Chibs and Blackman left out. While yes, many whites in the South were racist, but here's a shocker. They weren't all like that. Many risked their lives fighting for civil rights. Yet this episode sought to portray all whites as racist bastards and in an unbelievably over-the-top way. This was highly disingenuous, and if you are going to cover this, then it's unforgivable to completely ignore that part of the story, and at the same time perpetuate some current year racial stereotypes. What you two did was completely diminish the movement as a whole, you morons. The Series 11 installment of Rosa brought Whitaker the Hateful and her fam, what has happened to this show, to 1950s Alabama to stop a racist time bandit intent on preventing a key moment in the US civil rights movement. That was part of the problem with the episode. No backstory for this villain at all. He was just a space racist, and Mallory Blackman is supposed to be an award-winning writer. While this episode won an award for its positive social impact, no, all crap like this does is further stir up racial tensions. A reporter brought up criticism that it was too preachy during a recent press event with cast attended by Digital Spy. It was beyond preachy. It took one form of racism and replaced it with another form of racism. Racism is one of the most current things going on today. Actually, that word has lost all meaning in 2019. In the world of the woke, any form of criticism of any sort that is given to someone that isn't white is deemed racism, or a word that is thrown around to categorize people you just don't like. Racism, using the literal definition, impacts multiple groups. But explicit racism against that one group, i.e. the swear word white, is not only accepted in 2019, it's actually encouraged. So the criticism is just ignorant for them to say that in a sense. Ryan Sinclair, actor Toes and Cole, argued. Not to, get angered by it, but those issues are still going on now. Which issues, Cole? Are you saying that nothing has changed since the 1950s? Because that shows a very high degree of ignorance. When criticizing that episode, nobody denied that racism against African Americans was and still is a thing. People are angry over the one-sidedness of the discussion, the portrayal of whiteness, or of all whites as the devil, as was done in this episode. Moreover, little thought is given to the fact that few people living today ever participated in this type of racism, but they are told they have to feel forever guilty for crimes committed by their ancestors, crimes and historical events that they weren't any way involved in. That seems a bit racist to me. That's why it was so refreshing to see them, because you're seeing someone who's having to struggle years ago and to see that they struggle today, but in a new way. It hits home. Cole, I don't pretend to know your life story, but for someone that was cast in what used to be the biggest science fiction franchise in your mid-20s, it's very hard to argue that you have been marginalized. You also had the advantage of the BBC diversity and inclusion strategy, a policy whose sole purpose is to diminish straight white males within the BBC at every level. But I would assume that you may specifically be referring to Yaz in that episode. So let's look at Yaz for a minute. Mandeep Gill, if her performance on Doctor Who is anything to go by, has very limited acting ability and was clearly cast because of the inclusion strategy. But there is one scene in this episode that demonstrates why giving someone a position based on category requirements and not actual ability is a bad thing. What I found to be quite amusing is that Blackman and Chibs thought they were proving one point here, but just ended up proving another. There is this laughable scene where Yaz complains that criminals are racist and are mean to her. Clearly, this is someone that does not have the psychological fortitude to be a police officer. Thank you for proving our point for us. I don't think it was preachy in any way. I think it was just reigniting that fire. That, these issues are still going on today, and it's going on now as well. Let's be aware of what's going on. Of course, there are still issues today, but an episode like Rosa and the narrative built around it would have you believe that the issues have never improved and are exclusive to only certain groups. They are not. The demographic that is constantly attacked is told that they have privilege, which is dishonest and highly inaccurate. What you people view as racial privilege is really just the privilege of the top 1 to 5%, which I should add is not exclusively white. The rest don't have much privilege at all, and they don't have anybody speaking up for them. In fact, speaking up for them seems to be viewed as a hate crime these days. Tozen added even working on Rosa helped him fill in some of his own gaps in knowledge about Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement. I pity anybody that bases their knowledge of the civil rights movement on this piece of propaganda. I received more attacks than I can count when I tried pointing out some of the major holes in this episode a year ago, and I think it's pretty telling that the majority of these attacks came from young white males that were only parroting what they had been told in university. Young men that don't have the life experience to understand how the world works. If you want to see who they are, just do a Twitter search under my name a few hours after this video drops. You young lads are going to learn a very hard lesson in a few years. If you don't get your heads out of your asses, that is. Obviously, I learned in school, but maybe some of the details I didn't know to that extent, he recalled. If I didn't do the show, I wouldn't know the dates, the precise things, the ripple effect that each incident caused. No, Cole, you understand the propaganda. Again, nobody is seeking to diminish the importance of the event. We were angry at the way it was portrayed. The little intricate details, it's, I think, refreshing to do that for a younger audience and also a family so you can have that conversation in a household. This is not a balanced conversation. It is one-sided and portrays all whites in the southern US as the devil. As I said, it replaced one form of racism with another form of racism. And that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe and check your subscription and notification status because YouTube is being shady on these things lately. And follow me on Twitter. And as always, everyone, thank you for watching and have a great day.